Hey guys, welcome to another episode. How's everybody doing today?
All right.
Man, got the coffee here, silver table.
Did you say Met Coffee?
Met coffee. No, my coffee.
The silver table.
The Silver Table in Nashville, actually Franklin, Tennessee. I'm excited today because we have a special guest. We've been talking amongst ourselves for the last several episodes, and we're back to pulling in another agency owner, and I'm excited about this one. This is a friend of yours, and Jon. So why don't you give us a background about Jon and give the intros?
Yeah, this is going to be a good episode because Jon has the same philosophy as us, and especially with this podcast. We always say collaboration over isolation. And Jon is an agency owner, entrepreneur, and he actually runs a mastermind for agencies as well. And his whole philosophy is transparency to help everybody. So I asked him for an official bio, and he didn't send me one. So I made one up. So here we go. Actually, no, that's not true. I wrote this this morning. So Jon, you tell me if this is accurate, but here we go. Jon Tsourakis is the president and co-owner of Oyova, a technology and marketing agency. Oyova was the merger of Jon's former agency with his new business partner about 1.5 years ago. At Oyova, Jon is in charge of sales and marketing while his partner handles the production and operation of the business. They're based in St. Petersburg, Florida. Jon also leads the Digital Mastermind group, which is a mastermind for agencies, something that we strongly believe in. In fact, that's where I met Jon. So, Jon enjoys long walks on the sidewalk, Yahtzee by the pool, and he hates the coronavirus, which I'm sure of. Jon, was that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. Completely accurate. Yeah, I love it. And then we actually have the other, thank you so much. Actually, there's one correction. We have two offices, one in Jacksonville, Florida, and one in St. Petersburg. That's it.
I thought I got that one wrong. I just guessed at that one.
Well, if you didn't have a bio, you do now.
I'm available to write bios.
So Jon, tell me a little bit about your agency. Like what's your team like? What do you guys specialize in, et cetera?
Yeah, so there's about 30 of us distributed between two offices. Well, now predominantly remote, right? Because nobody's going to work. But we focus about 60% of our business is on dev, whether it's front end. We have a PHP team, and then we have a .NET team. So that mainly makes up our dev team. And then on the other side, the rest would be marketing services. And we work with mainly companies that are over $2 million for the most part, all shapes and sizes above that. And we work with a lot of agencies. So we have about 50 agency clients that send us either their overflow work or they white label the work that we do.
And is it full service? Do you specialize in anything specifically or any verticals, or is it full service, everything?
Man, I wish we could. Yeah, it's essentially, it kind of pains me to say that, but yeah, it is essentially full service for the most part, because there's so many great arguments for specializing in a specific area. But I'd say our biggest strong suits are just understanding the mechanics of technology and marketing, right? So we have deep lines in dev where we can do amazing things with front end development as well as back end. And then on the marketing side, we can create some really impressive lead growth through search engine optimization and some of our paid search campaigns.
I mean, in a way, it sounds like you are specialized. It's just not industry specialization. And even now, I know we've talked a little bit, but I'm maybe not even aware of it all. But one of your specialties seems to be this relationship with agencies.
Yeah, for sure. We understand agencies. Yeah, man, just building out this bio, Ken. You're amazing.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry. We'll get there.
It's evolving as we go.
You're going to want to scrap it all at the end for sure.
So
I love it.
the work you do for other agencies, what is the percentage of dev work? Is it almost all dev work? Like, is it just that?
I'd say 90%.
Yeah. So it's agencies that just don't have the ability to go as deep as you do in the dev in development or technology, right?
Yeah, we widen and deepen their bench is essentially what that is. So usually a lot of agencies will have one or two developers on their staff, and they don't, it's just not in their wheelhouse. That's not who they are as an agency. They focus on messaging or they focus on design, and we come in and fill that gap for them.
What do you think the percentage of agencies out there don't have that deep dev in-house? What do you think the percentage that you're finding?
Oh man, it's insane because it's kind of like what this podcast is about, right? The exposure of it. Everybody claims to be an expert at this thing, and they're not willing to say, like, yeah, we're just not good at that, right? So if somebody came to us and said, like, hey, we want absolutely award-winning, remarkable design, I'd say, well, we have partners that work on that, but we're not that agency.
Yeah,
we're the nuts and bolts to build that out. But I'd say, yeah, it's probably 85% of agencies don't have a super deep tech bench. They're very focused and specialized, or they have a developer that's either really good at WordPress or, they're a PHP custom guy, and they can wear some other hats. But if they had to go toe to toe in a showdown with somebody else, there's a probability that they would lose because it's out of their bandwidth.
That's interesting. That's interesting. What I'm curious to know of the agencies that you work with, are they typically traditional older agencies? Are they digital agencies that don't have the depth? Are they hybrids? What does your agency client makeup look like?
All the above, all those. There's some people that have just, for the most part, in the last few years, gotten away from print, and they've embraced essentially what the internet is for some respects. Others are very advanced, platinum HubSpot partners, right? That they just run into situations that are outside of what they're great at. There are others that are amazing design agencies that they have really good front-end developers. They run into overflow that they will send to us that they know that we can take care of. And there are others that they just want to take on like an ERP-based project because they can see the revenue in that, and they can bring us on as a partner because we have that old school, deep understanding of technology as well as the new school team to make it, flourish.
Mm.
John, we can spread beyond this, but I think it's an interesting, again, I do think this is an interesting specialty, and one I'd love to dig into a little bit. Obviously, serving agencies has a lot of benefits, but maybe one of the things that you have to accommodate for, I would imagine, is cost, right? Because they're selling it at a certain cost, and so your cost has to be below that, probably below what a typical agency would be. You want to talk a little bit about that, and how do you make that model work, and is that the case?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Cost is a factor. We are all onshore. So all of our team is, essentially between two offices in Florida. So cost is a factor. So some people will offshore. Some people have some of those relationships, and some of them work out well. Others don't. They run into, a myriad of issues I'm sure you're aware of. So what we do is we sell our hours. We block everything for the most part, we sell everything in blocks of hours, right? So the more hours that you purchase, essentially, the less cost it's going to be. So there's some agencies that buy large tranches of hours because they're essentially just buying access to our team. Others will just do it, based on a project basis. The interesting thing is, though, when agencies are like white labeling somebody else, the really smart ones get really sick of that because they realize the inefficiencies in it. And they'll typically just bring us on as a strategic partner, and they either say like, "Hey, I want a percentage of what you're bringing in," which we're completely open to, or B, they say, "All right, you're just going to be the tile guy or the cabinet installers. We're the builders of this home. You're specialized at this one thing, and we're just going to bill for you, and we're going to be transparent with our client." I think that's typically the best relationship.
Absolutely. I could not agree with that more.
So do you bill the client directly at times, or do you bill through the parent agency that you're working with?
Both. Yeah. It just depends on the agency that brings us. We're super respectful of how they want to manage the relationship. So if they say, "Hey, go direct, but give us a fee based on what we agree upon," or B, "Hey, we're going to don't ever circumvent us." Not that we would, but let's just make that clear when they say it to us, and then we'll work directly under them where they manage all the billing with the client.
Have you built your business intentionally around this model, or do you go after your own direct clients, or do you find it works for you to kind of go after agencies specifically?
So the interesting thing is my business partner, this is kind of a longer way to answer that, give you some of the history. When we met, this was something that he just kind of discovered. And then we were a marketing agency, and we would send our development to him. We had 2 developers, we'd get overflow, and then we realized it was way more efficient. So after 8 years, and he and I becoming very close friends, we decided like, okay, well, let's merge. And based on that merger, it's been going after other agencies and pursuing that with that message, because I have a deep experience with that, because I was in some of those painful things where I had a former business partner literally just leave one day with tons of projects, right? And he was our head developer, like that one of 2 developers. So in that, I love agency owners. I love the benefit that we can provide. I love, essentially everything technology and digital marketing. So that is my pursuit. And that's essentially how we've been continually growing, is by building those relationships with some of that scar tissue that I'm dealing with.
I mean, to that point, like, tell us a little bit about, how you ended up owning an agency. You can go as far back as you want. Like, it was something from childhood or whatever. But like, and then you obviously met, you met your business partner.
Childhood wound.
And he, Dave McGraw, right? Did I get his name right?
David McGraw.
Okay.
Yep.
Tim's lesser known brother.
Yeah. He is from West Virginia. So.
Okay.
Dropping some Nashville humor there.
Yeah, sorry, got to. No, but tell us about that and how you met, and honestly, there's a few topics I'd love to hit on if you guys want to. Like, one is the topic of business partnership, because I have a business partner. Bob did not have a business partner, and there's been this discussion about the pros and cons of that, and that's kind of interesting. I'd love to hear your perspective on that, and then there are some other things I'd love to talk about, mainly like what's going on now and how you're imagining in the next 3 months. But all that to say, start with just tell us how you got here. What was your story?
Sure. Yeah. I use home building analogies a lot, because my father he's a master carpenter, was a home builder. So it was a family business. I worked for him with my 2 brothers. And then when I started going to college, I was like 18. My father like fired me in front of like a group of people, based on making an example of me. Yeah, a little bit more. Yeah. So anyway, when I was going to school, there was a guy I was going to school with, and he said, "Hey, I own a company that needs marketing." It was a marketing company that worked in the healthcare space. So he gave me a job. So I worked for him for a while. That company became really corporate because it grew pretty rapidly, and some amazing things were happening. So in 2009, I decided to leave there and start my own agency. It just wasn't working out there. So started my agency, and that's when Revital was born. And I had another business partner at the time that I started that with. And then we grew that. We were doing pretty good. So I think it was around 2013 or 2014. I have no better way to say it. We didn't get along anymore. And I realized like that partnership wasn't working as much as it's like a bad marriage, right? So it was a disastrous breakup. He decided to leave. I'm not going to go into all the horrible details that happened. But anyways, I was left high and dry. That's when I met, that's when I still knew David at the time. We were friends. He helped us, get everything back on track, essentially, with, all right, we need the development partners because we have all of these, different projects going. And then over the years, sending business to him, we still focused on marketing, right? So we still worked with really cool clients, still worked with some agencies, but not to the extent that we, of course, do now. And our main focus was search engine optimization, content marketing, and paid search. And some of the things that I learned along those lines is I actually like having a partner, because I like having that an equal sounding board, somebody that I can continually communicate with. I like deciding with logic. I can be an emotional person when I get really excited. So shiny things are very dangerous to me. So I need a partner that sees dull things when I see shiny things. So like, no, that's not going to work. So that's a very strong thing about my current partner. And I actually have another business with other partners in it as well that helps out with. So I think that's mainly the story there. Yeah, for years we just fighting the good fight, trying to be an agency in a world of sameness, create differentiation when I couldn't. And a merger sounded like a really good idea based on the technology depth and the strategic advantage of being a strong partner for agencies.
So you've had a bad partner, bad partner.
Oh yeah. Oh, the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was so bad? You really want to?
Yeah. So the best way to put it is the guy was a brilliant developer and just like a psychological nutbag, I think is the best way to put it. Like there was a time where he wrote an email in all caps, in all red, and sent it to one of our clients in like 2011. And I'm not going to say the company. It was a pretty big company. I was really happy to win this deal, and just watching him submarine it was just so destructive. And I remember the guy calling me and saying like, dude, I will own you in everything in your family, in your life, if you don't make this go away. You need to and he told me that I needed to separate from that guy. And anyway, after him pretty much, taking off the veil and just really laying into me with his threat, and rightfully so, like that's no way to ever treat anybody. We were able to work it out. And at that point I knew I needed to do something, because I can't fix everything. It was a very vulnerable, humble moment where I can't do it, and I tried to talk to my business partner about it multiple times. It didn't work. And then we won a couple big accounts, and it got really stressful. I think he was having a child or something at the time. And it did just some blow up in the office. And he said, I'm leaving for maternity leave. And I was like, you idiot, it's paternity leave. And that was essentially it. Yeah. And then,
What was the takeaway for you? Like you look back on that years later now, and like what advice would you give us and or anyone listening when it comes to that type of thing? Obviously, we've all had experiences similar. But for you, I mean, I'm sure that's something it's painful to look back on, but it's also there's got to be some strong takeaways for you.
yeah, it's direct and gentle communication. So you have to say like, hey, this is what works and this is what doesn't work in the relationship. In that relationship, he just couldn't deal with people. So and this is a people business, every business essentially is for the most part, right? So that's something that I would make sure that your partner is somebody that you would enjoy going out to dinner with. You wouldn't mind taking a phone call on a Saturday from, that you enjoy. Like likability is a very important part. If you don't like that person, do not be business partners with them.
I like that. I like how you said direct and gentle communication. I think that's true with managing clients, because oftentimes, or anybody really, but you got to draw boundaries, enforce them, have very clear ones, but also be very kind about how you do it. Respectful at all times, and oftentimes, a lot of times in the face of maybe disrespect back in certain situations. But I think that's really good.
Yeah.
You said that.
What kind of advice would you give? So I've had business partners before in the past with other businesses, and we decided to go our separate ways for different reasons. And I look back at it now, my business partners were they're both really good guys, but I seem to sometimes have a different perspective when you're in the thick of it. How do you control your emotions, and just that idea that, how do you stay gentle in the relationship yourself, like with your mindset and things when you approach different things that are heated or there's stress in the company?
Logic. It's just, we're just really setting a foundation of logic. Like, are we being logical right now? Or are we being emotional? Emotions are going to enter situations, right? We can't fight that. If somebody yells, somebody else is going to yell. And it's just being really mindful of like what's going on right now. Like, okay, what is our reality? And then taking time to step away so you can move forward with those conversations. With all my business partners now, I always say like, okay, are we thinking logically here? And that's essentially how we move forward, because I can get super excited. I can get emotional and super persuasive. I'm a marketer. I'm a salesperson. So I realize like, okay, I'm pushing this a little bit too hard. I'm trying to use my strengths to move this in a direction, and then coming back to a logical plane.
Well, on another topic, I have a kind of an interesting question for you. How, when you work with other agencies and you're doing their dev work, there's a stickiness to develop technology development with a client. The client gets further in bed with you when you develop their technologies, especially if you're developing systems and processes that hit their bottom line. They're more attached to you than they may be an agency that provides more of a commodity service. How does that relationship work with a client when do you manage do you build big CMS systems? Do you build big database systems that capture a lot of data? And how does that work for you as far as, do you find yourself sometimes, if you work directly with a customer, but it's through a third-party agency, that they will be more committed to you than the agency?
Potentially, yeah. But that's why we have an agreement that's evergreen with our client. So they're continually getting a percentage for essentially not doing anything, just based on the engagement that they helped us create.
So it's beneficial for an agency for just a residual income.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and that's where they kind of just keep moving further and further away, because it's just inherent that you want to try to control that. Right. So then the agency realizes, like, well, those checks are still coming. I don't have to do anything. So you just see them fade off from the weekly calls or the biweekly, depending on what the cadence is.
Is that an evergreen contract, meaning as long as you, and as deep as you go with that client that they brought, they get is that in perpetuity, or what do those contracts look like?
Yeah, in perpetuity. Yeah, it's some people will say like it needs to end after 2 years or whatnot. I mean, that's not really cool, right? So if we can just have as much integrity in the relationship from the beginning to the end, the other agency is just inclined to continue send us more business. So they can treat it like an annuity or however they want, and it also behooves them to help keep the relationship between the three of us working as well as possible.
Yeah,
that's great. What's the longest contract that you currently have in place that another agency brought to the table for you?
I want to say 8 years.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, our agency does a fair amount of development as well. We have a whole development team, and one of the things that I realized early on when I started the agency is that the more you're in bed with technology that drives revenue for your client, I grew up in the old school agency world. I worked for some of the largest ad agencies in the country, and there was always a fear every year that you're going to.
You don't have to throw your resume around, man.
I'm telling you, but you're always afraid that you're going to get canned every year, right? Because it's like you become almost a commodity where they're looking at other agencies and they're putting the heat on you to lower your prices and increase your work, but when you add the technology side into it, where they literally rely on you for their revenue, it becomes a whole different relationship, and it's a long-term relationship. And I'm and there's this maintenance side. I mean, technology takes maintenance, right? And so when you build these big systems for your customers that are, big data hungry machines that take in lead generation and measure leads throughout the process of funnels and things, there's a certain amount of maintenance as well that it takes to upkeep the technology. And so there's additional models of revenue that traditional agencies didn't have in the past.
Well, with tech, you're removing a major part of the subjectivity in the discussion. Yeah. So the reason that companies are always every year reevaluating their agency relationships is because creativity gets stale and marketing gets stale.
The honeymoon's over.
But technology, like you said, is so integral to their success that there's not a lot of subjectivity to that when you've built something that actually is converting at a decent rate for them.
Yeah. Jon, what kind of stuff do you do in the development world? Is it a lot of like websites, or are you developing like e-com, or what type of projects does your team work on?
Yeah, so definitely a lot of websites, right? Especially with agency partners, but also we've built out the entire technological infrastructure for some companies where it's essentially their ERP that it runs based on the custom software that we've developed. It was a really strong case study out of it's a survey company, I think one of the largest in Florida or the Southeast. And the gentleman that owns it only had to go in his office 2 days last year. This is pre-COVID, because we were able to create an entire system that was so automated that it informed his employees of their next tasks based on jobs being put in. And the entire data transparency across all of the departments helped everybody collaborate. So that's another one. In the education space, we've built large platforms that automated the school districts on how the word's escaping me right now. I don't have kids. Essentially, with your extracurricular activities, where you submit all of the paperwork. Now it's not paperwork; it's a completely automated process. So it ranges from little website integrations all the way to deep down the entire skeleton of a company from a technology standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of similar to what we do. We develop websites, but we also do a lot of ERP stuff, a lot of larger systems that automate a lot of processes and things.
Obviously with, so there's a benefit to technology, but I would say a lot of times there's also more cost and maybe even more risk associated with it. Do you see that to be the case, Jon?
That there's more risk with the things that we're building?
Risk being can be, right? So if you're building something that, if it goes down, they lose revenue or something like that, and maybe there's more vulnerability in those areas, but maybe not. How do you guys see that?
There's risk all the time, especially when you're dealing with things that create transactions. We have some clients where we built their and manage their commission processes, right? So just that alone, you also risk insulting their entire sales staff if those things aren't up and running the way that they should, right? And of course, at that point, all right, what does that devastation lie in with, you can't get the transactions in. So there's absolutely a lot of risk in it. So it's important to make sure you have the right people.
How many people on your team, by the way? And how are they segmented?
So I want to say we have 28 FTEs. And then we have some long-term contractor partnerships that get us closer to 40 and whatnot, just people that want to be 1099s. I want to say anywhere from 18 of those people are probably all dev, right? So between the 3 different teams that I mentioned, the rest are distributed on the marketing team, and then a couple account managers.
So I'd love to transition a little bit. Of course, Jon, feel free to add or you guys jump in, but I want to talk a little bit about how you've managed the last few months so obviously coronavirus happened, the economy changed completely, everyone had to stay home, certain industries were completely decimated, certain businesses were, other businesses are thriving. And we've talked about, I know I'm in e-commerce and e-commerce has gone over 2x. But managing your agency and your company, Jon, just walk us through, I would love to get your perspective. What was it like at the beginning? The first day everything closed down and everyone's saying that, the world's ending. What was it like through that process? I mean, and by what was it like, how did you manage your people? And also what have your sales and client relationships been like? Has business been better, worse? Have there been struggles? And where do you see, looking forward, how has this kind of changed anything, on your perspective of how you run your company, maybe new opportunities, those kind of things?
Yeah. We had a pretty big Christmas party in December, and we have another podcast called The Climb, right? So we told our whole team, we're going to make this the year of the climb. So that means we're going to climb, and it's going to be a hard journey because we had record numbers last year. So when we started seeing that this is a real deal, because at first I was a complete doubter. I'm like, what? This is America. What are we talking about here? Face masks everywhere? Obviously I was wrong about that. So when we realized okay, they're starting to, shut things down. We were, my business partner and I, we got together and we said okay, well, we need to put, we need to put a plan in place to make sure that we come out as unscathed as possible. So we gathered the team together, of course, in a Zoom video, and we told them okay, this is the year of the climb, and now there is a snowstorm coming in. It's about to get really, really nasty. But if we all buckle down, work together, make sure that we don't lose any of the clients that we have, that we offer superior service that anybody else would ever offer, and we close as much business as we can right now, that we will be able to maintain and get through this storm and continue our pursuit, on our journey, this climb. And in doing that, I can't say enough about our team and their ability to execute, because we continue to have record month after record month. And they proved that they were all mature enough to work from home. Because before, my partner and I were like, no, we're old school. Like, everybody come into the office. We had a few employees that were remote, that were long-term employees that moved out of state, and we didn't want to lose them. But for the most part, we said everybody had to come into the office. And with this, it's like, wow, what archaic thinking that we had. We have amazing team members that are able to perform at the highest level while dealing with their kids and pets and packages being dropped off. So that's essentially the story of how we've been able to get through it, and we're still doing great today. We're in July, we just had another record month. So since March to now, it's just huge month after huge month.
Oh, that's great.
Did you have Miley Cyrus come and sing The Climb at your big Christmas party?
I didn't know after I already chose the name.
There is a coffee shop kind of below us, the studio, and Miley Cyrus it's one of her favorite coffee shops. So she's spotted there often.
So we could do that for you.
Oh, really?
We'll grab her next time.
I appreciate it, guy.
Or Brad will sing it for you.
Yeah, yes, I do.
Climb.
Yeah, though it's,
I'd prefer Brad to sing it.
I like your analogies. I just think that talking about like the builder analogy, talking about and the climb, I think is a great theme, especially for a business. And it's hard. And I think the one thing that you said is that it's hard. It's hard, and anything that is good is hard, and it takes a lot of work, a lot more work than most people think. So that's congratulations that you were able to fare through COVID. I know a lot of agencies have struggled. A lot of businesses in general have really struggled, and so it's good to hear that. It's a very good. We've done okay too. So just so you know.
I think that's interesting. I'd like to dig into that because there are stats that came out throughout, and I think they haven't even come back. But I think HubSpot puts out a few stats. Kind of aggregate their data. Obviously, they serve a lot of agency and service-based companies. And, like new leads are down and closes are down something like 30% from February. What do you think? Well, two things. One is, what area of your business grew? Was it new business or was it existing business? And is there a difference there in your opinion? I've seen a difference in our world. Like new business, we had the fullest pipeline that maybe we've ever had through the COVID period. A lot of interest, a lot of inquiries. Obviously, we're in the e-commerce space. A lot of people are looking there. A lot of people need to get there fast. But more uncertainty in starting something than ever. So it's this like dichotomy that we were dealing with. But our clients were expanding faster than ever. And so I would be curious to know, when you said business was really good through that time, break that down a little bit for us, and what caused it.
Yeah. So it's across the board, and the one component I did leave out is the mastermind group that you talked about. We were having weekly calls where we were able to check in. So in that, we were able to lean on each other, pump each other up, and say hey, this is how we're going to go about this, right? So with the clients, the communication that we had to them was current clients was. Especially in the marketing side, now is the time to double down, right? When something is out there with fear, everybody is going to pull back. So if you've ever wanted more market share, you're never going to get it at a cheaper price than now, right? So with that communication, we're able to extend or increase some of our marketing packages. With current clients that were coming on board, we shared that message with them. We're like, hey, if you've ever wanted, and I'm speaking mainly to the marketing, if you've ever wanted to, garner business, now is the time. So that worked well. There was some people that were just way too afraid, right? And understandably so. Nothing wrong with that. So that's how we had that message. As far as the development side, that really didn't change too much, but we landed some new accounts in this where I think we're just blessed and lucky to some respects. We sold properly. We acknowledged that there was a concern out there. They got past it, and we were able to move forward. But I think the main thing was the service that we provided, the continual check-ins, they were able to grow those accounts. And we're still closing accounts. I mean, we've closed, a couple this week. So I think it's just all in the way that who you are in that conversation, and also what you are communicating you're able to deliver based on what you're delivering now, is going to be the game changer. If you come to the table with fear, they're gonna leave with fear. If you come to the table with confidence, they're going to buy into you in that confidence.
Certainly true. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
What do you see the forecast of the next 6 months being with COVID and maybe some shutdowns in certain areas of the country? Do you see that we're full steam ahead now, or do you think that there'll be that more fear will still come in to play, and we'll go through another dip in the fear from an economy standpoint?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. A good friend of mine, Lee Walkner, put it really good. He's an agency owner out of LA, and he said, the path forward and the recession is going to be different for everyone. There's going to be pocket recessions based on specific industries, and some aren't going to feel it at all. For instance, if you are a hospitality or travel-based agency, oh man, like it's as if you're in like some Renaissance torture chamber. But for others, I think that are industry agnostic, I think you can play it safe, especially if you have clients that are in construction. Construction, was important to the economy, so it didn't get the same designations as others. We have some construction clients that's also done well for us. So I think it's going to be a little bit different for everybody.
Yep.
So how does this change going forward? So, or if at all, do you see opportunities? Has it changed your thinking about how you do things? Have you, talk about that.
Yeah, it sounds bad. I mean, I hate the coronavirus, but I love the challenge that it creates for business owners, because it's just, if we were all so lucky over the last 10 years of the way the economy was growing, now you get to really see what you're made of and able to, all right, am I going to be able to, scale this next piece of this, this climb, this journey? So I like the challenge. I think that I guess we're in the best position possible to continue to move forward. The opportunities, though, are acquisitions, right? There are some agencies that aren't going to be in the best possible place, or they're going to realize their weaknesses and their strengths, and they're going to look to merge with some others. I think there's going to be a lot of acquisitions and mergers that are happening on account of that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think acquisition or even market expansion is really an opportunity. I said, we talk about this a lot. I think most agencies are in the business really of knowledge and experience. And there are multiple ways you can sell that. And it's not just through service.
Right.
And I do think, as agencies, you need to figure out, what model you're in. And I think I always want to challenge people to think more about that area of it. Like, how can you package up what you actually are selling in different ways? And I feel like the market is more open to that going forward. It's from what we're seeing, we've sort of expanded in that area, and obviously we're sort of heavy in that area to begin with, but we've seen really good growth in that particular place. It's been also, we had a challenge. I mean, we went through a dry spell as far as closes for a long time in the middle of it. It seemed like everyone was right at the finish line, and clearly we weren't, just being honest, we weren't able to get people to the confidence level, or the businesses to the confidence level, to actually pull the trigger on the thing that they were talking about there, which ultimately for all of them that did were probably the best decisions they'd made, because we're in a world where you can't sell in person, so you have to sell online.
Did you integrate any new product or services because of COVID for clients, things that you guys haven't done before that now it's part of your offerings?
No, I don't think there was anything new other than just rapid messaging to communicate things, whether it was pop-ups on websites or email blasts or things. I just think Yeah, I don't know if we've developed a new service. I can't think of one. I think it's just essentially the same services.
I know you guys do, or you do a mastermind. That's how Ken, I guess, came to.
That's
to
what's our
connect you.
connection. Yeah.
Yeah, the connection is what do you offer beyond dev services? Obviously, for many agencies, are you packaging up knowledge or anything else outside of tech development that you're offering as an agency or as yourself?
No, not really. Yeah, we have the digital mastermind group. It's completely free to join. We have one event per year, so it's just a collective knowledge base. There might be some way to charge in the future just to cover other costs. Right now, we do a yearly event that covers the costs, but I think it's just creating that space where all these different agencies can come together and just be open and share and transparent. Is important, but as far as creating any type of monetization from that, there isn't anything other than break even. And as far as Oyova is concerned, now I do speaking and do things like that, of course. But yeah, that's essentially it. It's just rolling up the sleeves and doing work. I love what Ken's done though. Like, I mean, he's created all these books and all this stuff, and I'm like, dude, this is gnarly. I love this. You're my new idol.
Yeah, right. Would you like to share some of the cost? It is something I enjoy. I do think it's part of. I do believe, maybe not for everybody, but I do think it's for most agencies something that they need to think about and be challenged with and embrace because, depending on your area, as we've talked about this a lot, it seems like as an area gets, and you could feel free to argue this, but as an area gets easier, democratized to where a client can do more, the act of doing that thing becomes commoditized, right? So the agency, where an agency was valued or hired to do whatever, run Facebook ads, now that Facebook's made it so easy to run those ads, it's seen as more of a commodity and becomes harder to actually create a business model around selling that. And I think that there's this constant, it's changing constantly over time. And so as an agency, I've always challenged myself to think, what is it that is truly unique that is about, that people, that will deliver value, that will almost be transcendent of trends and fads and those kind of things. Now, I think it is potentially different for every agency, but I do think for a lot of agencies, it is experience and knowledge. That's really what they're selling, right? Agencies are really the only types of companies in that world that work with hundreds of different businesses and different business models and see behind, get all this really massive experience. And that is arguably, I think, one of the big values of hiring an agency as a brand, because a brand doesn't typically have that. The staff in a single company doesn't typically have that. Even the most experienced VP of marketing or whatever often doesn't have that much experience across so many different models and so many different companies. And so I always, I think one of my things is to challenge agencies just to think about that. What business are you really in? And it sounds like, honestly, you've done that too. Like, clearly, like this niche, which in the last little bit here, I would love to dig into a little bit more, this niche of the partnership with other agencies being a big business driver for you guys. That's really interesting. And they clearly hire you because you have the specialty, the skill, and the experience and the know-how, and they don't have to worry about the technology that you built and all those kind of things, right? Those are important factors, and that probably is more important than the nuts and bolts, because let's just be honest, they can go and hire freelance developers, right? Or developers in India or something like that. So the reason they would hire you is for the intangible, the thing, you tell me if I'm wrong, right? But the thing that you're doing, that's really not the hands and feet of it, it's the layer above that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I think everything at some point can be commoditized, right? And that's the danger that we run. For instance, as agencies, you have somebody that comes to you and they say like, oh, I need ideas on this. Like you're this drive-through creative place where you're just going to spout out these things and they're going to, pull off and get back on the road. So what we look at with clients is, okay, so we're going to do all these things, but like you said, what are all those intangibles? And one of our things is we strive to be the easiest company to work with, right? And that sounds very basic on the surface, but what that means is not only can they contact us based on any consulting questions that they have, so we're going to help them scope projects. We're going to help them win those projects. If they pull us into a sales scenario, our team is going to do everything they can to help them win that pitch. And then as far as the execution of it, how can we continually make this an enjoyable experience, for them to work with us? Because I think we know that we're going up against the Eastern Bloc or India or any of these other countries, or even South America's got good talent down there. So, well, what can we do? Well, we can embrace their culture that they're working with here. And what I mean by culture is not necessarily the American way of doing something. It's essentially the way that they go about the work that they do, right? What is their culture? How can we link that up with our culture and make sure that we have expedient delivery and make sure that, like I said, we're the easiest company to work with. We respond immediately. There is no day between responses. Like you're going to know quickly. You have an account manager's phone number. If you need to pull them into a meeting with your client, or even if it's just one of our direct clients, it's the same relationship. So, I guess one other thing I would add to that is always bring gifts to meetings. So what I mean by that is ideas. So bring gifts to meetings and give them ideas where you're continually stimulating them. Nobody... if that works, that can be a great idea too, right? But if you're continually stimulating the conversation and pushing the boundaries of what's possible, that can also be used in sales. But the novelty never runs off of working with you. If you show up unenthusiastic to a meeting, and why? I mean, life's too short to work with people you don't like, right? So that's one thing that we impress upon our team to continually deliver.
Yeah, especially in the development world, that is a differentiator too, right? Because bringing value that is a leadership quality is, I would say, a little rarer, and it's definitely there's a difference there because there are a lot of people you can hire. I don't know of any in country, but definitely out of country where it's like build this thing and no questions asked, they'll build that thing, right? But like maybe building that thing wasn't the right path, and maybe they should have thought about building it this way. And that is a real value. It saves tons of time. It obviously increases the business. It's a business add, and it's a real value add as well. Can we maybe just for the last few minutes here, I know we're coming up on time, talk about the sales channel that you have with partnerships. So I'll call them partnerships, but they're your agencies, right? Your clients a lot of times are agencies, or at least the go-between between them, who introduce you to clients. And we have an area of that as well. And it's certainly the most fruitful, the warmest leads, the best quality relationships that come through that, because there's already a trust built in. And so, I would always say I want to expand that on ours, and I would say any agency owner should look at expanding that. So are there any tips and advice that you can give, and even how you market it, how you develop those partnerships? Like if people aren't doing that at all, should they be thinking about that? And if so, how do you start?
Yeah, I think there's a cost to it, though. Like, for instance, especially the work, a lot of agencies, they don't want you to take credit for that work. So that's something that you have to be aware of, right? And the ones that you can, they say, well, I don't want that on your portfolio, but you can show a client during a sales call or whatnot. So those are some of the costs. As far as and I think it also depends on the agency. Some don't want to do that work. And I think that's a bit silly, because I think competition is a mental construct, right? So if we look at, the market as a bunch of puzzle pieces, everybody can fit in with another company to some respect. And I think it's just finding the way that you work together. And I mean, if you do good work, right? There's agencies you're like, I don't even think you should be calling yourself an agency, right? Because your inability to deliver. But let's say that it's a level playing field on deliverability. And with that, I think, to approach, it's the same means that you would approach any other sales. where just make sure that you have your sales story together. Make sure that you have the people that are most willing to, hear you based on a need, and contact them through the same channels you would, right? Whether it's going to be email, phone, or LinkedIn, or even events too. But yeah, and it's time, right? It's not, gangbusters out of the box. It's just you're going to win these things unless you're going in the commodity play, right? Because there are agencies that just want to sell super cheap SEO. They have these lame little packages, and I call them lame because I don't think you can fit SEO into a box, but they're going to sell like a certain number of links, and they're going to do all those things. You can do that, right? And you can make a ton of money at that. It just depends on what your offering is.
It's good.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I get probably 3 or 4 outreaches a week for, development companies trying to get our development or something like that. And I know you don't do that. So I'm always curious, like, you've built really high quality relationships with agencies that you get a sustainable business model through. And so, how do you do that by not doing what
some of those are phone calls? Yeah, some of those are phone calls. Some of those are an email, and you can see that email. Like, they all like have the same flavor. It's like, do you need such and such at PHP? It's like, come on, man. Like, literally, you took no personality and you just, sent it out there. If you connect with somebody and you build a relationship that's genuine, like, hey, I see these are some of your projects. These are some of the projects that we've done. If you're having any issues with these, we want to help take you to the next level. It's a 10-minute conversation, even less if you don't like the first 5 minutes, right? Something that has your personality, your tone, can go a long way. And those are commodity-based businesses that are just bombing us. Like, we get the same thing. It's at least 4 a day. I mean, it's insane how many we get, right?
LinkedIn message bots. Yeah. I'm getting so sick of it.
I get so many every day. They're all the same can.
You know how you know it's so dumb? They take obviously the company name and they just pull it in, and they put it in like, hey, Ken but our company name is Metacake and e-commerce growth team. So it says, hey, Ken from Metacake and e-commerce growth team.
We visited your website. We visited your website, and we think we can help you. Tell me a little bit about your new business development process. Is there something that you guys do that you feel is maybe unique, or how do you generate new business, whether it's through an agency partner, with an agency partner, or a direct-to-client business?
Yeah, I think it's the 3 Ps, right? If you know that there's a need there, it's positive, persistent pressure, right? So if you have the right message and you just continually follow up with those people in that list, and you'll find a need. There is a numbers game. So we need to give credit to the people that are sending like, hey, we do development for $15 an hour and we do custom PHP and all that. It's a numbers game. If it didn't work, they wouldn't be doing that, right? So I think it's just being strategic, where you take 100, right? These are the 100 people that I'm going to go after. And based on our numbers, we'll create 20 conversations. Of those 20 conversations, 10 will be valid, and of those we'll sell 5. I think it's just having a strategic approach that way.
That's good.
Yeah.
I like the 3 Ps. That's good.
What type of, since sometimes you can't promote your portfolio of what you've done for other agencies, how do you become a thought leader in your industry? Like, what kind of things do you do to promote yourself to new clients?
So we have relationships, whether it's with advertising, associations and foundations. That's one way, right? So we access those. Another's through partners. Like, we have a long-term partnership with SharpSpring, right? It's one of the marketing automation tools that we use for a lot of our marketing accounts. And it's finding the services that are on the fringe that agencies would be using, right, that fit our mold. And I think it's smart for anybody that's going after any industry, right? So let's say you're going after construction. What are the fringe technology services that they use that you can fill those gaps with, right? If you're an integrator. And that's how we approach our business development. It's one thing to go head on, which we will, right? We'll use the 3 Ps and go head on. But the other is, how can we make the strategic relationships with the people that are on the fringe, and how can that then feed us business? And you don't even necessarily even always have to go and use those fringe businesses on the strategic relationship. Sometimes you can use companies like Built With or Data Nice, where you can buy those technology profiles, and that's the new list that you build, and you can target that way as well.
It's good. It's good. Jon, thank you so much for spending your morning with us, and this has been really helpful. How do people get in touch with you or learn more about the Mastermind, et cetera?
Yeah, appreciate that. So you can shoot me an email at Jon at Oyova. That's Jon at Oyova.com. If you'd like to visit the site and join the mastermind, it's digitalmastermind.com. Just hit that contact box. Email goes directly to me, and yeah, have a conversation. See if you're a good fit. It's completely free, and yeah, love to talk with you. And guys, I really appreciate you having me on, man. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for being open and sharing. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, cool.
right,
Sounds
thanks,
great.
Jon.
Thanks,
See you,
guys.
Jon.
Bye now.
Talk to you soon.